Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well. Welcome to a bonus upload. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you all know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they definitely matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into tonight's bonus, shall we? Today's first encounter. Around 25 years ago, I was living in Boston, Massachusetts. My friends and I would go to New Hampshire nearly every weekend, as one of our groups had a family member with a cabin near North Conway, the White Mountain area. I had made acquaintance with an older man and later became friends with him, as we all did. He lived a few miles down the road from us. To preface this a bit, he had served in Vietnam in combat. He was one of the brightest, most intelligent and intellectually engaging people I have ever met. An all-around good person, and a man's man, as the saying goes. If the trauma of service in wartime affected him, I never saw evidence of it. He has a laid-back, jovial demeanor, quick wit. His attitude was that every day was a very good day. I once asked how he stayed in such a positive, upbeat mood. I was then 20 years old, and like everyone that age, I had what I thought were real problems, and got into bad moods, etc. He told me one night over a campfire, "John, when I was over there in Nam, I went through a lot, saw a lot, did a lot. It was hell. I swore to myself that if I ever got back home from out in the jungle, I would never have a bad day again. And guess what? I haven't." I never did forget those words, so as you likely gathered, he was a very level-headed, grounded, intelligent man. Well, like many in the rural parts of New Hampshire and many wooded areas, he always carried a handgun. Always. He carried two, I later found out, identical Smith & Wesson Model 29s, 44 Magnum revolvers with a short 3-inch barrel. Not a very common gun in that particular configuration, so I recall them specifically now. He loaded them with hand-loaded rounds. He cast his own bullets of mostly silver. Yeah, silver. Probably a great way to ruin a barrel quickly. He told me and a few of us in a very matter-of-fact tone to never go outside at night, if possible. Never. Someone in our group kind of laughed it off and made the remark of some kind. That's when he got very serious. His jovial demeanor was gone. He very seriously said, "Look, believe me, or don't. I'm trying to save your lives. There are things out here, and they are not supposed to be. They shouldn't exist, yet they do. They are not bears, they are not deer. They are not anything that should be walking around, but they do just that. Stay in the house at night." Off, and when I saw him next, he was back to his old self. We talked a bit, and he told me then that he has seen what he believed to be werewolves, or they were the closest thing he could compare them to. He said that they were very large and very fast, and he believed they were very intelligent, maybe human-level intelligence. He also told me that is why he carried a heavy loaded 44 mag, which, for anywhere in New England, is really overkill. but he estimated their weight to be 450 to 500 pounds and their height to be 7 feet or more. He was 6'4" and said they had a foot or more of height on him. He had been within 20 yards of these things and said they tried to flank him. The main, biggest one kept his attention, and the other two began what he called a classic flanking maneuver. He fired his gun into the ground as a warning, since he wasn't sure what he was dealing with, and wasn't sure that his gun would even be effective. He fired 2 rounds, then leveled his gun at the face of one. He said it threw its arm and hand up in a reflective defense posture, and then stared at the gun intently, as if he knew what it was and what it could do. It then made a loud noise, and it and the others ran off into the woods. Now, a .44 Magnum from anything is loud. A .44 Magnum from a 3-inch barrel is horrendously loud, for a reference. He said he felt a primal fear that he had never known. He never felt it, even in combat in Vietnam. This was a man who did not scare easily, if at all. Whatever he saw scared him to his core. Hearing him explain it scared me, and I don't scare much myself. He didn't like being out at night at all, and wouldn't be out at night often. Well, that's my input. I've never seen anything myself. But a man, I believe, unequivocally did claim he saw something. Today's second Dogman encounter. So, like 6 months or so before COVID, me, 26-year-old female, young daughter, 8 female, and I lived with my mother. My mom has this house that's kind of on the edge of town. We live in Arizona, so it's surrounded by the desert. The closest bus stop to my mom's house is about a 45-minute walk away at a community college. My mom had taken a 3-month European trip, so my daughter and I had the house to ourselves, and we were definitely enjoying it. One Sunday afternoon, we had to go out grocery shopping, so we set out to the bus. We got our shopping done and window shopped for a little longer afterward. So when we went to catch the bus home, I realized it was sunset. I tried everyone I possibly could for a ride back to the house. I absolutely dread walking from that bus stop at night because after you get from the college, there are no streetlights. It's literally like pitch black aside from the occasional car headlights passing. That's all right, except my daughter is absolutely petrified of the dark, and there are often homeless camps in the desert nearby. I'm always nervous one of the people in those camps might try to grab me up or my daughter. Anyway, not one person was available to drive us home, so we hopped on the bus anyway. I tried to prepare my little one for the dark walk ahead and let her know that she was always safe with me. I carry mace and a pocket knife. By the time we pulled up to the college, it was fully dark out. As the bus driver stopped the bus, I caught the back feet and tail of what looked like a giant, I'm talking 10-foot, naked dog jump into a bush in front of the bus. I'm a total skeptic and definitely assumed my eyes were playing tricks on me. However, right as the figure disappeared into the brush, I heard the bus driver say, "What was that?" staring in the direction it was in. This was the most terrifying walk of my life as I held my little girl's hand speed walking, as much as she could handle, trying not to show her how afraid I was. I would not dare look back. As soon as I got back to the house, I turned all the lights on and locked the doors. I also checked every window and made sure they were locked. I looked up what this might be. Google seemed to have no idea. Dogman, Skinwalker, who knows? Today's third Dogman encounter. The situation started around midnight on Saturday night, 2007, when I was coming home from a friend's in Benzonia, Michigan, and taking the way back home to Traverse City. I was on the Cinder Road, several miles outside of the town of Bendon, Michigan. I observed a pair of eyes reflecting off my headlights in front of me. Thinking that was probably a deer alongside the road, I slowed down As I got closer, however, I saw that the object was much larger, much darker than a deer. Now, at this point, I've slowed down to 30 miles an hour, and I'm several hundred feet from this beast, which has not moved yet. As I'm approaching, the only way I can describe this creature is similar to a very large, dark wolf. But this thing was not on four legs. It was standing upright, standing near a deer that I imagine it had killed in the road. I estimate this creature to stand a little over 6 feet tall and very dark fur. By now, I'm going slow enough to bring my truck to a stop in the road to observe this creature, which had not yet moved and is still staring at me. For a brief second, I believe the creature was a stuffed animal, put there as some kind of prank due to the fact that I've never seen anything like this. And I was able to drive right up close to it, without it moving an inch. But before I could finish that thought, the creature dropped on all fours and sprinted across the road, disappearing into the woods on the other side of the roadway. I'm frozen in my seat for a minute, wondering what the heck just happened. Whatever that was, it was for real. As baffled as I am at what I saw, I am deathly afraid to go near the woods to investigate any further. This thing didn't make any noises, as far as I can tell. Definitely was not a bear. I'm a bear hunter who regularly hunts the Upper Peninsula, so I obviously know what bears look like. Today's fourth encounter. This is not usually a topic debated on the Navajo Nation Council floor. But, be that as it may, rumors of a skinwalker visiting Fire Rock Casino should be discussed. Delegate Everin Keyswood told the council and members of the Navajo Gaming Enterprise during opening of the winter season. Rumors are that you all had a visitor at the casino, as I understand it. It was at nighttime. A werewolf or a witch walker of some sort actually came into the establishment, to some degree. There were witnesses and somebody fainted. It would be interesting to hear that Keyswood told the Navajo Gaming Enterprise CEO Robert Winter, maybe I shouldn't be talking about it in the open, but I think the council should be told about incidents like this because it does create an atmosphere that is not conducive to the patrons, Keyswood said. Shortly after the casino opened its doors in November of 2008, about 4 o'clock in the morning, one of the employees, who Winter thought was a member of housekeeping, believes that she saw a witch or another spirit of some kind. He states, there was some concern by employees and casino security was called to escort employees to their vehicles. In a later interview, Winter said the report he got was that a skinwalker was seen in front of the casino by the entrance. If there were multiple sightings continually, we'd be concerned. We haven't had reported incidents since. It could have been a human being. For all I know, it was not a well-dressed, he said jokingly, but on a serious note, I don't scoff at these things. I've been blessed 5 times since I have been here for good reason. Hopefully, that's the last we will see of whatever that was. We have had numbers of blessings from the casino in the interest of the Navajo tradition. The most recent one was when lightning struck one of the lights, ran down the wire, and came into the casino. We closed the casino for a half a day and had a lightning ceremony that consistent with the Navajo tradition. Despite the uninvited guest, Fire Rock thrived its first year and continues to advance in its profits, according to Winter. Today's fifth encounter. One night I sat at home alone, relaxing, watching TV. I suddenly heard a noise from out in the field through the open windows. This is a pretty normal occurrence, given that I own about 6 acres of empty, dry dirt field that at the time had a lot of wild animals out and about. Like skunks, deer, raccoons, and such. But on this night, my cat jumps up onto the windowsill, puffed up, and backed themselves into the corner of the window to listen in alarm. This was not like them at all, as they're used to the various wild critters out there. I muted the TV and listened. I realized that whatever it was sounded big, almost as if something was maybe being dragged through the tall dead field grass. The cats were also growling, increasingly alarmed by the second. For whatever stupid reason that I came up with in my head, I decided to go outside with a knife, of all things, to go check it out. I stepped out my front door and the motion light came on as expected, but as soon as I stepped around the corner to where the noises were coming from, the shadows took over and cast me into total darkness. Now typically the critters will take off when they hear someone coming toward them. Whatever this was either eating something or unafraid, or was just plain big enough that I was the least of its problems. Then, through the darkness, it growled at me. It had the smoothness of a cat with the loudness of a dog. That's the only way I can describe it. On pure instinct, I put my hands up in the air and backed away around the corner, back to my front door. Why I didn't bring a flashlight, I'll never know. As soon as I got back inside the house, I went directly to close my blinds and windows that were facing the side yard. Whatever was outside growled at me again, even though I was bathed in light from inside of my home. I never did figure out what was out there that night in the dark. I did look outside the next morning, but there was no trace of anything in the field. And the next encounter. Hey Jeff, a couple encounters I'd like to share with you. First, my buddies. Northern Louisiana. So, I used to go to my buddy's house located in the edge of some marshy woods all the time when I got off of work on the weekend. We'd go hunting and frogging on his land pretty regularly. He constantly talked about weird sounds and a weird large dog-looking thing that he would sometimes see while in his deer stand or walking to and from it. I'm pretty skeptical about anything like that because I generally thought he was just trying to create something to talk about, because he used to get pretty ridiculously jumpy whenever we'd hear noises going through the woods in the early morning or at nighttime. And he would tell me he would hear his name being called outside and sometimes hear his own voice. He would explain to me that one time he was heading back from his stand one night and this dog-looking thing ran at him in a crazy fast manner from roughly 100 meters away. He carries a sidearm for black bear and bobcat, etc., so he pulls it out and unloaded roughly 15 rounds of 9mm into this thing, that then proceeded to change paths and run away. He went to track it, and the blood trail stopped abruptly, and he said ever since then he has been on high alert at nighttime and early morning. So after hearing his story, it sounded pretty unbelievably, so obviously I'm a skeptic. I didn't believe him, so I had no fear of his woods aside from bobcats, but I also carry a self-defense sidearm for predators, so I felt pretty confident. This one day he offered to go stand up because he was working late one night, and his brother were both wanting to go hunting as well, so we all loaded up our firearms and took to our stands that were all spread apart on his land. I climbed into my buddy's stand, waited out, and just sit in peace, waiting on the deer. As I'm sitting, time passes pretty normally, but around sunset it gets dead silent where I'm at. I don't think of anything. I'm assuming it's because I was zoned out, waiting for some dinner. And so I waited for as long as the sun almost set down, and I was about to get ready to pack up when I saw a deer. I didn't get a good look at its head to see if it was a buck or a doe, but I had both tags, so I'm fine either way. I raised my .30-06, sighted in its heart, and pulled the trigger. Well, I blinked and then I shot, and when I blinked, the deer was gone. I strapped up my rifle, climbed down, and my friend's brother calls to me and said they heard me shoot. and made it up to me to help me track the deer. We found blood, a good bit of it, and we started to track it. We tracked it roughly 100 to 200 meters, and then the trail literally vanished. No leaves rustling after, no blood, and no more broken sticks or disturbed foliage. We searched for the trail for a couple of hours until we all got dreadful feeling that something was watching us. I haven't really ever experienced this feeling like this, and I did not like it. Moment brother number 1 mentioned he felt uneasy, we all decided to admit defeat and walk back to the house. That was the last time I went hunting out there, because my buddy's family moved shortly after to a larger home. Now, I know, being from Louisiana, the rougarou comes up, but I assumed that was just Cajun folklore. Here's a bonus creepy Pennsylvania cryptid encounter. Before I begin the encounter, I'd like to provide some backstory. I live in PA, and during this particular encounter, I was at my aunt's. She has 3 kids at her house. It's about 3 to 5 miles down a remote dirt road off the highway through a rural area. She's approximately 25 minutes away from any store, 35 minutes away from the police. And before I start, understand that I do not usually believe in supernatural things. This was a couple of months ago. I was at my aunt's for a birthday party. I got there around 2 p.m. and by 7, I was ready to leave. My cousins, her kids, asked if I would stay over because they don't get to see me often. I agreed, as I also would enjoy time there with them. So after the party and after everyone had left, I was with my aunt, her 3 kids, her husband. My aunt and uncle went to bed around 10 o'clock. I stayed up with my youngest cousin, who we'll call Amy. Amy and I were in the living room watching some Criminal Minds until about 11 p.m. She decided it was bedtime. I stayed up watching the show. Mind you, it's now pitch black outside. I'm in the middle of the woods. For this factor, they had motion-activated lights outside. As I watched television on the couch, which was against the window, I noticed that the light outside turned on. My heart is beating, seeing as I am in the middle of the woods and people should not be around the house. I looked out, and luckily, it was just a deer about 20 to 30 feet by the tree line. Since it was only a deer, I went back to watching the show. Of course, deer are cute. Nothing to worry about, right? 5 minutes passes by, and the light shuts off. I'm still watching Criminal Minds. I gather my blankets and pillows and get ready for bed as I was sleeping in the living room that night. As I'm settling the pillows on the couch and I lay the blanket down, a sudden, bright flash startled me. It's the motion-activated light outside of the living room window again. Before I even looked, I thought to myself, oh, it's got to be the deer again. However, I looked out reluctantly, but there was nothing there. At this point, it's 11:45, almost midnight, and I'm yawning. I go back to organizing my sleep space, and not even 30 seconds later, I hear something clank the window that I had just observed out of. Once again, I turn to check, and what just hit the window and what I saw I cannot rationally explain. Off the side by the tree in the yard was the deer again. However, it was not the same deer. It looked deformed and malnourished, stomach extremely sunken in, and barely any fat. On this animal, it stood there, looking straight at me. I felt like it was staring into my soul almost. This deer, if it could even be called a deer, made me feel extremely unsettled, and I did not feel safe. What I saw next made my stomach sink to my feet. The malnourished deer that made me feel such a foreboding and disturbing feeling contorted and ran off on 2 legs. 2. It went into the woods, out of my sight. By this time, I'm absolutely freaking out. My heart's racing, and I'm the only one awake. I immediately closed the curtains, ran to make sure the doors were locked, and sat away from the window, just trying to process what I had seen. No matter how much I thought about it, I could not rationalize what I saw. This deer, literally skin and bone, contorted, folded in ways that are not even capable for normal joint function, And the way it ran off on two legs, the way it stared at me before it all happened, I don't understand. Now, I didn't sleep at all that night. I ended up going into my aunt's room, telling her what I had seen. Of course, she didn't believe me and told me, "You're just tired, so you're seeing things. I can tell you with 100% certainty that I saw what you saw." After that night, I refused to stay at my aunt's anymore, and if we would go there for a party, we made sure we left before dusk. I have heard stories from other locals in the area when they were hunting. I remember one mentioning a tribe or a cult that lived in the area off the beaten path. Maybe it was one of them and I was just tired. Maybe not.
All right, folks, I hope you all enjoyed this bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you all for supporting this channel. Your support is what makes this channel special and what continues its growth. It is truly appreciated. Guys, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and they are dangerous. Share this information with the people you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, and God bless you all.